from the last plastic straw online with me. And I mean, she's
Yeah.
really I don't know, maybe my counterpart of what I do as a marine biologist. She's the activist kind of, part of it. So she has been actively campaigning against plastic straws for a long time, long before my video even came out. And yeah, so I'm super happy to talk to her, first of all, of what she does in her advocacy work. Second, what has changed maybe ever since my video came out, and also if anything changed since the documentary Straws came out. So,
Hmm.
Jackie, and maybe just tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do. Be all
Hmm.
clear.
Well, thank you for having me. It's so great to see you, Christine. I mean, it's always been such a joy to work with you. Um, I'm Jackie Nunez. I'm in Santa Cruz, California, founder of Last Plastic Straw, and now I'm program manager for Plastic Pollution Coalition. So a lot has changed since that video went viral and since I actually started my project over 10 years ago now. So what happened to me is my last plastic straw moment happened when I was traveling in Belize. I'm a kayak guide and former river guide. And if you've been anywhere in the last 10 years, you know it's been exponential the amount of plastic pollution that you're seeing everywhere. And that's actually correlating with the amount of plastic being produced. And I got to a point where I just had to do something more. And I came up with the idea of the plastic straws because I was learning about the issue. I wanted to, I was volunteering locally, doing beach cleanups and learning all about the issues and stuff. It's a local program called Sanctuary Steward Program, where we live right above the Monterey Bay Sanctuary. And so a local organization called Save Our Shores had this program where they would train us and teach us about the problem, and then we became leaders in leading beach cleanups. But I got to a point where I just wanted to do change behavior, and there was a lot of conferences I was going to and speakers I was listening to, and there's a lot of data at that time, 10 years ago, about the gyres and about how much plastic we were finding in the ocean. So there was a lot of information. So, anyways, and what they were saying is, we're getting all this information out, but there isn't any behavior change. Um, and my analogy was, when you have these beach cleanups, it's great to do that. It's a great teaching tool. It's the last line of defense from getting into the ocean or into any waterway or whatever area you're doing it. Uh, but to me, it was like, bailing a overflowing bathtub with a teaspoon, and cleanup area was like trying to mop it without turning off the tap. So I wanted to turn off that tap, but I was just as overwhelmed as everybody else, hearing about all this, learning about it. And it wasn't until I got served a glass of water in Santa Cruz, looking out over the Monterey Bay Marine Sanctuary, a glass of water, which at the time I was already asking for no straw and coherent about that. But I didn't think about water, that it would come in a glass of water. Usually it's like a drink, or, mixed drink or something. So that was it. That was my last plastic straw moment. And I modeled it off of the campaign in California called the Waters is Precious campaign. We had a drought going on. And so it was mandated, actually, by the state that restaurants could not serve water unless requested. That was my aha moment. And I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, so the least a restaurant can do is write straws upon request on their menu. I knew that would be, instantly, overnight, huge source reduction at the source. And I also had a hint that it would be that behavior change, that it wouldn't stop at the plastic straw, that it would be a way to get people to realize the enormity of this problem. And the poster child was, of plastic, of useless single-use plastic, was the plastic straw, because most people didn't need it, for most people. But really, Christine, I have to say, it wasn't until your video came out in the fall of 2015. Actually, I think it was August 2015. And when that video came out, everybody sent me that video on my email, and it blew up my inbox. And everybody asked me, did you see this? Did you see this? And I contacted you right away, and I asked for permissions to use the video, to use the photos for my presentations. Because what I was finding is that people really kind of needed those optics. And I call that the straw felt around the world. And that was the last plastic straw moment for basically worldwide. That's what it took. And it really did propel the work that I did. It just blew it up. So it went from local to global virtually overnight. It was going kind of more national. I was reaching out to organizations in Bali and other places, but at the time, there's only a handful of us really focusing on plastic straws. But I have to say, that fall, I mean, over 200 campaigns popped up all around the world, and I'm sure you can speak to just the craziness of that viral video. Um, you're froze up on my computer. I don't know if anyone else can see you.
I don't know. I can see you. Can you still
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear
So
you. Yeah, yeah.
I might be a little bit staticky. Sorry.
Okay.
Bad vibe.
I can hear you.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I remember when you contacted me, it was so funny in a way because I published it with the idea, of course, to show, what just one single-use plastic item can cause, what kind of harm
Hmm.
it can cause, and that it's an item that every one of us uses. And I had
Hmm.
literally no idea that you were out there working on this one specific item as well. And I'm so happy that it actually found a purpose, bigger than just like the 2 weeks of craziness that came with it, but it actually had something that was way more sustainable and way had a kind of like a ripple and after effect that I did not expect at all. I literally thought, after the 2 weeks and the kind of the craziness went away, that okay, now the next bigger thing is happening, and this thing is just going to be snow of from yesterday, as we say in German. Like nobody's going to care about it anymore. But I'm so, 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 so glad because it was such an ugly truth, I feel,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, that it actually catalyzed something positive, because sometimes I feel if you have so much negative imagery, I'm worried that it just perpetuates the negativity, but it actually something I feel I've been thrown into this world of activism and people that are so incredible, inspirational in what they do. Like you're one of them. Like this is, and I'm so glad that I actually even bad for that turtle that she had stuck this straw stuck in her nose. But I'm so glad I found this turtle and that I was able to make this video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I have to say that it's been quite the journey, and really that video was so valuable. And I knew that, I mean, I did at the time. There was a classic photo that was going around with the albatross, the decomposing albatross, and you could see all the stuff in their stomach, and you could see that lighter, you could see the bottle cap, you could see stuff, and I knew plastic straws were part of the equation of harming animals, but I had no I knew it was part of it because I would do beach cleanups, and you could see how it would break apart and be. So I knew it was part of the microplastic problem, that probably birds were ingesting it, and animals were ingesting it. That it was becoming microplastics pretty quickly on the sand, but also in the ocean and in our waterways. But I didn't have that albatross picture. But the only thing I found was in 2012, there was a Magellan penguin they found with a plastic straw that perforated its stomach. Uh, and it was just a report I read about it, and that was it caused a death and necropsy. But uh, and that's all I had to do. I didn't need the photo. That was enough to know. But really, I realized that quickly optics are huge for people, and they kind of need to see the results of their actions, and that really did kind of catalyze it. As far as the film goes, that was pretty crazy because with a project like this at the time, it was just me. I was known as the Crazy Straw Lady. I kind of was self-funded. I was just doing it on my part-time. I was just passionate about it. I had 3 part-time jobs at the time, and it just kind of ebbed and flows. There were times where people were like, "Yeah, this is great," and I was reaching out to all these nonprofits and saying, "You guys, I think this is the behavior change tool that we're looking for. I think this is really what's going." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, low hanging fruit," And I'm like, "No, I think this is a gateway issue," because I was seeing the reaction in my friends. So I'd be doing these beach cleanups, and with my friends, and we'd go out and maybe get a drink or get a bite to eat, and then it would be like ordering drinks and receiving them with straws in it and not thinking twice, and they're sucking on the straws. I'm like, did you not just see what we picked up? And then you saw the look on their eyes, like, oh my God. I mean, it was literally in front of our noses and nobody was taking stock. And that's how bad it's become. I mean, really, it was the poster child of use of single-use plastic, and also just kind of how wasteful we become with it. Because what we were finding once restaurants started doing it upon request, it was like, 80 to 90% of the people would not ask for a straw. You're always going to have that percentage that need it, and that's fine. I'm not for straight out straw bans, totally into bans of plastic for sure, and offering alternatives, or even having maybe a few on hand for those who feel that they really need the plastic straw. It's not for me to say. So I was really conscious about being positive, and although this video was kind of harsh, um, it actually is a positive video because you found that turtle and you helped that turtle, and that turtle did not die. And uh, and kids always ask me about that, and I always say to them, I preface it. I said, "You guys, you're going to see this video, in the Strauss film, and just want you to know it's a happy story." And I think they did a good job of telling your story in the film, and giving the background of it and showing that. Um, but as far as the film goes, Strauss Films, yeah, that was crazy. I was just doing my thing. The project kind of ebbed and flowed. Sometimes people would contact me. I saw some momentum. Other times it felt like, what am I doing? And I got a phone call from Linda Booker. So to her benefit, I mean, she was amazing because she just kind of knew early on. This is even before your video. She called me in the spring of 2015, and out of the blue, and said, I want to do a movie on straws. And I was like, wow, okay, sure. She was, and I want your exclusivity. If anyone else calls you about doing a movie, like, you committed to me. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. No one else is calling me. Great. She had another great movie at the time that was out and she was doing the film festival circuit, and it was called Bringing It Home, about industrial hemp, a really good movie, ahead of its time. I think it's something that people should watch now that hemp is becoming more in the forefront. Um, but anyways, rightfully so, she was doing all these film festivals all summer. So she, true to form, she said, you won't hear from me all summer, but I'm going to come to Santa Cruz for 4 days and film in the fall. And I was like, sure. So I didn't hear from her. I actually got to a point where, like, I wonder if I am going to hear from her. And then she called me up and, like, yeah, we're coming October. And by then that video had gone viral. And so that kind of changed, I think, for her, the movie. Then she was thinking, oh my God, I'm sure she was stressing out about budget. And now I got to get to Costa Rica. And honestly, I didn't know how much she was going to even have of me, or what my project was doing, and how much she was going to focus on other things as the movie developed. And but yeah, they were here for 4 days. It was beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful in Santa Cruz in October. I mean, the whole crew, I think they're all from like North or South Carolina, and they were all ready to move here after that. And we got some great footage from Monterey Bay Aquarium. I love that we featured Wallace J. Nichols, that he really kind of set the Blue Line tone. Um, and because when she left, there was just that unknown. I don't know if you felt the same way too, like, what's going to happen with this, and is she going to get it? Like, what will they really use straws the way that the whole premise of my whole project is that it's really not about the straw, it's the catalyst, about single-use plastics. Will she pull that together about the bigger problem? And she did. I thought she did a great job of showing the bigger problem with single-use plastics, and using the plastic straw as that catalyst. Another great thing that she did with the movie is she did keep it positive and informative and accessible. I think a lot of movies just really kind of bum people out and make them feel hopeless. And I saw firsthand, time and again, people are really empowered by it after they see the movie. They're ready for action. And that's what I tell people when you show this movie. Just be ready to have a good panel after, and let them know, because they're all going to want to know, what are we doing in our town? Like, how are we doing this? And it's amazing the questions you get too, because they'll start asking, like, what about the water bottle? What about, it's like, yeah, what about those things? So it is that segue, that is that gateway issue. So it's been a great tool. It's been amazing. I don't have to sit there now when I do a presentation and say why the plastic straw. I can just show the movie and say, okay, let's work on solutions. So it's been an amazing tool. It's been a great journey, and it's been great to connect with you with all this.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that, and I'm very honored that I'm actually part of it. That she was able to tell our story. That she was able to come down here and give us a voice, because I feel
Yeah.
there's not much explanation within the film itself, the video, right? So, I mean, we did,
Yeah.
I think our caption, or my caption underneath it, grew over time, longer and longer, giving explanations to certain things. But this
Mm-hmm.
was really the first time that we were able to answer some of the questions, with our own faces, actually, because we hadn't really shown our faces neither. So that was really great. And I'm so happy that it is you know, as you say, it's not that we are campaigning just against plastic straws, right? We are really trying to advocate against the whole massive issue of plastic, which is so overwhelming that people don't know
Mhm.
where to start. And I think this is really what you do so well is you give the people an easy in, and then as soon as they in, I think it's so much easier to do the next baby steps, right? So next
Mhm.
thing is like, okay, cool, I can do the straw. So what else can I do? Maybe I use my reusable water bottle. Maybe next time I'm bringing my reusable coffee cup and even save some cents, no, when I go out and get a coffee. Maybe I'm bringing my own cutlery. So I think it's so, it's just once you
Yeah.
know the system of how you can replace certain items, I think you start looking for them and say like, okay, what else can I replace? Like, what else is there that I know that might be plastic and I can actually use it?
Yeah.
Can you still hear me
Yes, I
more or
can.
less?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I can hear you. So yeah,
Yeah,
the other thing I was saying too is that I called it the gateway issue. I think it did a really great job of really highlighting it, and even the bad press was good press, right? So even when people were bashing plastic straws, like why are we talking about plastic straws? Like there's so many, bigger problems or bigger problems with plastic. Like what about polystyrene? What about bags? What about all these other things? And one of the statistics people say, well plastic straws are only 0.2% of plastic found in the ocean, whatever. And all I can say is like, you're right. And that was the whole intention that, you had people having these discussions and really talking about plastic. So now I talk about the plastic straw as being the key to the door. And now everyone's in the room speaking about plastic. So I feel actually my work is just beginning because now we're really kind of, we've woken up people's perceptions about this, really having them really look at their waste stream and what they're doing. And, when I started this, I really had a firm belief that no one sets out to pollute the planet. We're just not aware. And I wanted to raise that awareness and I wanted to make it accessible and something that people felt that they can start at. But I knew and I could see it that people would not stop at the plastic straw and businesses too. Without my prompting, if they just did straws upon request and started changing things, they automatically will start looking at alternatives or because they're buying a lot less of it. It's like, well, even though the alternative might be more expensive, um, I'm giving out, 80, 50% less or whatever the percentage is. And I can maybe invest in some reusables or maybe that maybe looks to me like, well, maybe I don't really need to have straws at all or plastic straws and I can do other things. So they started changing things like bamboo toothpicks and doing, looking and then looking at their plastic footprint and seeing the uh, the feedback they were getting too. A lot of people were really on board with it once they understood that. Oh wow, like I didn't realize, it makes the business is great. I always said it's a great way to greenwash your business. If the least you can do is write straws upon request, that's one less thing you have to buy and it's a win-win for everybody. So, anyways, I think it was great.
yeah. I myself am trying at least to reduce my plastic footprint. So I'm big into reusables, but
Yeah.
even living here in a developing country where people interesting are aware, but I think there's a big cognitive dissonance between, their own actions and how that contributes to the massive problem and also what's available, right? So I'm always getting really upset with the major corporations that
Mm-hmm.
are already restricting certain like packaging materials in Europe, for example, because there's stricter rules, or even toxins.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then in the US, it's less regulated, so it's a little bit worse. And then they come to the developing country and they literally trash us with all the bad, sorry, stuff. I was
Yeah.
almost going to curse again,
Mm-hmm.
but all the bad stuff that they cannot use in other countries, and this is all the people have available to buy, especially if you're from a low income community, which most people are here in Costa Rica, right? So especially in the areas that I work in, we're super rural. We have no waste management system here. So that means there is no trash pickup. Let's not even talk about recycling, which isn't working anyways. But most people burn their trash in the backyard. So I'm always wondering how can we tackle such a huge issue because it's not just Europe that produces trash. It's not just the US that produces trash. But of course, countries like Costa Rica also produce trash. So how can we tackle that? Do you have any ideas of how we can make even low income households more sustainable with, maybe, well, not, well, the problem is always effort sometimes, people shy away if it's too much effort. And
Mhm.
also it needs to be cheap, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like I always go back to like the onus is not on us really, and it's really these corporations and these governments that are allowing this, and that the only reason why plastic is so prolific is that it's quote unquote cheap, but we don't really have the true cost of plastic out there. If we had the true cost of plastic, it would be a lot more expensive than it is. If they were responsible for the pollution that plastic has in every stage of its existence and what it's doing to our environment, and we had extended producer responsibility, that they were tasked for the end of life of that product, well, that'd be a whole nother story now, wouldn't it? But instead, they're just basically kicking the can down the road and being able to get away with it. They're being subsidized by governments. And it's basically a feedstock of the petrochemical and gas industry is a feedstock of plastic. And and so what I would always say too, if you want to individually um, divest from fossil fuels, is to say no to single-use plastic, which is a great opportunity in Plastic Free July. But with all that said, when you go to these countries, like I spent time, I lived in Puerto Rico for a while. I have family there. I go back all the time, and we get, I see that firsthand. I've um, also used to live in Bahamas and participate and work with Bahamas Plastic Movement, and worked in Belize, and I mean, you see that it is a real burden on these island nations, and really what they're, it's no fault for them because it's only what they can get is all this packaging that they're being marketed to. I mean, the plastics industry is really taking the playbook, which I think was originally actually the playbook of the petrochemical industry, anyways, to begin with, the fossil fuel industry, but that tobacco um, took, and now the petrochemical industry is just going with, which is really exploiting these other countries. Whereas when we have stricter regulations here, they just start moving their markets to other places where there's not, um, and then saying like, it's not a material problem, it's a waste problem, right? And saying don't litter and recycle, and just really kind of just shifting the narrative. So I want to shift that narrative back. It's like, no, it's a material problem. So I tell people all the time, I'm very conscious about when I speak about the problem. It's not the item, is plastic is problem. So I use the word plastic often and liberally, right? When I speak to uh, city councils or in messaging, I'm clear to say, not focused that the straw is the problem. It's plastic straws, it's plastic utensils, it's plastic. I even want to say plastic polystyrene. It's just a clue in people's heads that this is plastic and everything's plastic. It's single use and it's not disposable because it never was, never will be disposable. I'm not going to perpetuate marketing terms for plastic. I'm not going to call it recyclable plastic because basically it never was recyclable. It was downcycled once at best at an abysmal rate, and it's still there polluting our environment. So I am not going to continue selling this false hope. Um, but it really is. It's a whole systemic change that needs to happen. So that's what we're up against. And at a time when we should be making a lot less of this stuff, they are, ramping up to make even more. They've invested to make even more of this single-use crappy plastic and ship it to these countries in the form of sachets, which are these single-use packaging that you get because maybe you can't afford. You have it in India, you have it in Indonesia. I'm sure you guys have them in Costa Rica too. I'm seeing them everywhere, and so it's just single use, right? So it's one use. It's like a one-time use thing, a single serving of something, or a single use of, say, laundry detergent or whatever, and it is cheaper. But actually, by the ounce, it's more expensive. But you can't, at that time, you can't afford to buy the big bottle, right? So
Yeah.
you're just the one-time use, the one-time thing, and then you have these sachets, which are just these little plastic packages like you get for chips or whatever, and it's a lot of different layers. So it's a difficult to recycle to begin with. If you were going to try to take it back, I would say downcycle it at all. So no, it's awful, and but what I always say, we have truth on our side. right? So if we can continue to um, stay truthful and stay true to the message. And we also have optics, and that's what was really big about your video. So it's like you can't unsee that. You can't unsee once you opened your eyes to it. You're going to see plastic trash everywhere, and it's plastic. The majority of the plastic that we're finding, or majority the litter that we're finding, is plastic that's staying in our environment. Um, yeah, so that's just kind of where we're at. And so there's stuff, I mean, really, businesses won't self regulate. We need policy. And that's what's exciting about there's a lot of movement, not only with through your video, but also with the Blue Planet video that was actually a huge moment for the UK, and a lot of movement in Europe with David Attenborough, and really kind of highlighting this issue. There's been a lot of momentum. And even though with COVID and everything just kind of going crazy and the plastics industry taking advantage of that, I still have hope because it's a lot of people are at home. We're not caught up in the day to day and just succumbing to this convenience lifestyle. There's a lot of to go, and there's a lot of ordering from Amazon and all that. But people are seeing in their face their own waste stream, and they're learning about how this isn't going away, and that we're shipping it to other countries, and that's what we're calling recycling, or we're burning it, and calling it waste to energy, but basically it's a transfer of pollution.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. Yeah, I mean, maybe it makes me happy. I feel, first of all, I feel within the past 5 years that
mhm,
we have the conversation about plastic, right? So I
mhm,
feel nobody really talked about ocean plastic pollution other than us marine biologists because we see it all the time. I mean, we have recorded incidents by, sea turtles ingesting plastic since the 80s. Um, but then yeah, you could see how it developed. All of a sudden, the UN picked it up, right? The UN, which is huge, of course, started talking about ocean or plastic pollution in general. And
mhm,
just recently, I had a meeting right here, and we were talking about actually our trash issue here in this small town. And immediately, this person actually said, "Is like, and I don't want to hear anything about recycling because recycling is just a big lie. We don't want to go recycling. We need to think about it differently." And I was just so happy to hear that because obviously, this message is getting into the heads of people, right? So it is becoming more a thing that people are actually knowing that recycling is a big lie. It hasn't been working for many, many decades. And
mhm,
we cannot accept any longer that the big corporations lie to us about it, right? So we need other solutions, we need other materials. And I think
yeah,
once the necessity is there, there will be also the solutions because I really think just because they were so lazy, right? It was so easy to invent a different story that nobody really went out looking for other materials. And I think now that this is changing, I really
mhm,
think we will see a lot of changes even in that sector, materials that we haven't even thought of that could be replacing plastic. Because
mhm,
for me, it is just crazy to think that we are using a material that is made for eternity for literally just a few seconds of use, right? That's always what I go up when I talk to people. I say, okay, you use this plastic bag for how long? You use this straw for how long? But for
mhm,
how long will it be swimming out in the ocean, breaking down in smaller and smaller parts? It probably will outlive me and you and everybody. So I'm so glad that there's people like you out there fighting the good fight and not
mhm.
giving up because I'm sure it is not easy. I don't even want to know how much hate mail you might be getting from the fossil industry, or is it actually not so bad? Actually, that's a curious question I would love to answer.
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, no. I mean, I did get interviewed interviewed. I'll put that in quotes on Fox News. I got yelled at on Fox News, and that was the first time I started getting kind of trolled and 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 stuff. But it was, it was fine because even the trolling, it was so funny because that was part of the. I usually didn't engage on social media unless it was really bad, and I want because I work with a lot of kids, and I'm not going to want any bad stuff put in there. But usually my followers will put these people in check, right? Which is so great because they're like on it and they just shut them down. Um, and every once in a while, I'll look one of them up, right, and just see like, well, because they're trying to like basically educate me about the bigger problem, that there's other things and things like that. And I'm just like, you're right. And they're talking about plastic and all this other things that are wrong with it, which I think is awesome. And I'll go and I'll look at maybe their Facebook feed, and I'll see that maybe that they never even talked about the environment before. They didn't even have a platform to begin with, but they chose me to vent on. And at the same time, here they were talking about single-use plastics and all the problems with it. That was more bigger. It was bigger than the straw. I was like, well, you're right. And so that was like the fun part about it. And I really didn't take on all that. I mean, I don't want to ever go on Fox News again. I'm glad I did it. Kind of felt like I took one for the team. Um, and I was surprising that I got a word in at all, and actually got the last word in that, which was the line, plastic never was and never will be disposable. And so that was fun. And the calmer I looked, the crazier that woman looked. And I couldn't see her. It was actually live fed. So, but yeah, it's, every once in a while maybe get something, but it's not anything. I think a lot of people, I also think it's not a partisan issue. Um, People like to politicize it. And that's one thing that really bothers me. And I've always been kind of reluctant and not much of a political person. Um, to me, I think as someone who's outdoors all the time and everything, I never really got involved. I joked around that it truly was a slacktivist turned activist. And I mean, I voted, but I barely voted. And I just didn't believe in it. I didn't believe in our system. I didn't believe in what people in politics and what they did. To me, the environment is not a political issue. We have the right to clean air, water, and soil. There's no excuse for polluting the planet for profit, period. No type of, that should just be a set regulation, and it should just be everyone abides by those rules. Like, that's basically, I mean, honestly, it's not even a good business model. You're shooting yourself in the foot if that's your, business model, is to extract and waste and go to, that it's a finite resource, right? So, anyway, here I am, and I really do believe they don't self-regulate. There is room for that, and we have truth on our side. And that's, I think, the only thing that really saved me in that Fox News interview, is that was the mantra I had in my head. I was not going to engage in some of the crazy stuff they were coming up with, and just get my points across about it and not succumb to some of that rhetoric.
I
Yeah.
think me, as a German citizen living in the US for a few years, I always was very flabbergasted that there was, you were a Democrat and you cared about the environment, and you were a Republican and you didn't care about the environment. And that just something was mind-boggling for me, because it's like, you all have children, right? You all have grandchildren, and you all want a nice, sustainable future for your children. So that doesn't make sense to me. So why is it a political issue?
That's
And
actually not
then,
true. I mean, actually, a lot of Republicans do care when you do poll them.
yeah,
It's just, but
but
now that they've made it, they want to separate it. So now it's become,
exactly.
yeah.
And I was put on the hot chair, for example, by a CNN comment, where when Trump was selling his Trump straws, which you probably are well aware of, and
Hmm.
they called me up if I wanted to give a comment, and they didn't even tell me about it. I mean, I followed the news, so I knew what was going on, and I was kind of suspecting that this is the reason that they called me up to make a comment, and of course it was. But I mean, in the moment, when they asked me the questions then, and I heard in the background, I couldn't see what was going on. Like you said, it was a live feed. I could just hear what audio was like cut in. I was like, yeah, of course they're going to put me on the hot chair. And I try also not to engage. I said, yeah, he might be right. There's bigger issues. But the thing is, we're not advertising that straws are the end of it all, right? We are trying to make people understand straws are the symbol of a way bigger issue, right? So he's taking it out of context. But yeah, it's difficult sometimes to not engage into like in this whole negativity, and also of the name calling and the sites that they want to, or like this. I feel sometimes people try to push you into a corner with whatever you believe in, right? If it's, and
Hmm.
I don't get it. Sustainability shouldn't be debated. Like you said, it's not something that should be politicized. But I'm
Yeah.
glad you held your own in Fox News.
Well,
That was, I saw that one. It was really good.
interestingly enough, that whole Trump straw thing and what Trump said was the first time I ever agreed with him. because he had actually said that there were bigger problems, and he started listing. It was great. It was just he totally went stuff right
Yeah.
into it and started mentioning bigger problems with plastic pollution. He actually admitted that there was problems, and so and even that plastic straw that they were selling, they were labeling it as recyclable, which actually was in violation of some sort of law for uh, like mislabeling of something. So someone called them up on that, especially for uh, you know campaign contributions. So yeah, they were just selling it as as recyclable plastic straws. I mean, if they were smart, they would just call them reusable. But whatever, I didn't really engage in that. People sent me that was all over the place, and they made it. They were just like in your face, and they raised. It's like great. So you're raising money by selling something that's pollution by design. That's great. You're just like in your face. It's like what do you say to that? It's not a
Not a
political
thing.
issue, and so
Yeah, I
um,
think we should have that very clear that, I don't advertise because like I said, I'm not even US American, so I'm not member of a party, and I'm sure
mhm.
you're not either. So I don't want to politicize it either. I just hope that people kind of start to realize what needs to be done, no matter their political beliefs, in order to create a planet, a future for their children, right? And their grandchildren, and maybe for themselves. I mean, I'm not that old. I have very
Yeah,
old grandparents. I hope I will become like a 90 or 100-year-old old lady. So that's still a few years to go. And I do not want to live on a desert planet. Yeah.
yeah. I
There was
mean,
one. Sorry, go ahead.
no, finish your thought. Finish.
No, no, I go. Please go for it.
Well, the one thing I was going to say too is just the whole health implications too, right? That we're getting a lot. We just had two back-to-back webinars on health and plastics, uh, and it's just really interesting about how that's coming out, and people really realize that it's an endocrine disruptor, and even for some of, if you say these people that are disconnected from it, it's men's sperm counts are decreasing by a rapid pace. It's like 50% of what it used to be, and the virility as well. So if you're that demographic of that, older white male who's maybe popping Viagra, um, you know, for plastic use, and you have these chemicals, right? That your Viagra is not even going to help you, right? So it is a threat to even that. If you want to go there, that patriarchal, conservative, uh, mindset of that fragility of that, the white male privilege, and that um, they should be all against this, knowing that they're getting poisoned as well. I mean, we all are. And I always say too, it's just industry doesn't win either. In plastics industry, this is a short band-aid. They're trying to eke out as much as they can. We've had a glut with the fracking boom, and they want to create all these ethanol cracking plants and make more of this low grade plastic, and it's just like this last ditch effort uh, to make some sort of profit off of a dying industry. I mean, they are suffering, and as we move away from fossil fuels, um, so they're basically creating a market with their toxic waste byproduct, and that's
Yeah.
plastic. And we're wrapping our food in it, and we're eating out of it, and we're feeding our babies out of it. And there's a lot of great uses for it, but not the way that not a lot of this single-use plastic. Is really we need to get a handle on that. Wallace J. Nichols said it best. He said, plastics needs a timeout, and I really feel that we've gotten to that point that they've really kind of pushed it to this whole level of greed where you're getting bananas wrapped in plastic and everything else. It's like, no, it's not necessary, and that there is a place for people to refuse this stuff, but it's also needs to be regulated. They have not ever been really regulated as far as the dangerousness of this, and it really is a hazardous waste. They can get hazardous waste designation, which is the only thing that plastic really fits to a T. The definition of is hazardous waste,
Yeah.
especially in our environment. And then there'd be a lot more. Our whole ocean would be one big Superfund site. They would not be able to be making this rampant production of single-use plastic, and there would be definitely a big pause on all of this. It's Yeah, I mean, it's not going to go away. It's not like I'm saying, stop making all plastic, but definitely stop making single-use plastic, and let's look at other alternatives. If it must be single use, there are other alternatives that could actually be used once and be more regenerative in its end of life. So when we say sustainable, I don't want to sustain what's happening right now. I want it to be resilient and regenerative, and looking at these closed loop systems so that we could, get past this and evolve. It's not going to be a revolution. To me it's not a fight. I am not in a I'm privileged, and I'm not living in an area that is exposed to these toxins. Um, I'm exposed to toxins, yes, plastics on a daily basis, but not at the manufacturing end and not at the waste end. Um, that a lot of these marginalized communities, to them, it's a fight for survival, and I support that, and want to give voice to that wherever we can for them, or a space for them to really speak up, because this is really a social justice issue for sure. And first and foremost, I mean, we are not, plastic isn't disposable, but neither are we, and it's certainly a fight in that respect. But I do say too, someone like me, it's a evolution, not a revolution of the species. We need to evolve and evolve past this. It doesn't serve anyone, and again, it doesn't serve the corporations either. This is just a temporary uh, blip that they're just trying to eke out what they can. But the destruction in the wake of that is just unacceptable to me. It's criminal.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I was going to ask you like how you picture your future, and I think you just gave us like the perfect vision of what it could look like, and I love it. And I really hope that this is going to come to be because we need a change and urgently and quickly, actually quicker than I hope we're gonna evolve a little bit quicker than usual. And yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything. If not, I would say we
Yeah,
kind of leave it with that because I think that was a perfect, like the end of the sentence. And I just want to remind everyone that tomorrow we will actually show the Straws film. So you can register on our website for a watch party. And yeah, if you have any questions for Jackie, I'm sure that she will be able to answer them either in the feed or you can follow her on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as the last plastic straw. So that is where you can find her and all the good stuff that she's doing. And also her kind of overarching organization, Plastic Pollution Coalition, which I think is at Plastic Pollutes on all three platforms as well.
yeah,
And you mentioned, I think, one thing that I really want to point out, that's the healthy pregnancy guide that you guys just released, right? So
yeah. Very
I
important. Yeah,
kind of need to point to what anybody that is pregnant or plans to get pregnant anytime soon, that is an amazing resource to live a more sustainable, plastic-free and toxin-free pregnancy. So do something good for your future baby right there.
yeah.
Yeah. If you have anything else to add, Jackie, go
I,
ahead.
I, I do. It just reminded me that one of the things I wanted to point out earlier when you were talking about the impacts of Costa Rica, and we were talking about island nations and some of these countries, is that I really feel that the solutions are going to be regional. That we are going to become more resilient, and if anything shows that, it's this crisis as well. Um, we can't be reliant on all this industrialized, what I call food system. I mean, what's really the stuff that we're shipping all over the world? What is the nutritional value? Get more nutritional value if it's within 100, miles of where you live. Then that food is actually fresher and has the nutrition you need. It's going to be more localized. You're not going to be so dependent on these outside forces. And so it's really, I think the communities come together. Um, I mean, even with me dealing with policy, every community is different. So you figure out what works and what doesn't. And I really, we support, and we are really looking to these Caribbean nations, because in Indonesia and the Philippines, all these ones that are really having it on both ends, just not only their own what's being shipped to them, but what's also being transferred to them on their shores. Um, I also want to say too, we have the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which is a national law for the United States. So if you're from the U.S., please look that up. You can check it out through Plastic Pollution Coalition as well. We have a sign on. We're trying to get co-sponsors to support the bill, And if you want to contact me, it's Jackie at plasticpollutioncoalition.org. And actually, my Instagram handles, and you can find me at Last Plastic Straw, but my handles are at No Plastic Straws for both Twitter and Instagram. But
Awesome.
those are some of the things I wanted to mention just to get a key in the air. But I just think too that I tell kids all the time, single-use plastic is a design flaw, and we can redesign our future. There's hope. We just need to get out of this system that doesn't serve us anymore.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jackie. I don't have anything to add. This is
All right.
perfect. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us
Yeah.
today. I am super stoked that you were here. Always
Yeah.
like such a pleasure
Yeah.
talking to you.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you everyone that is kind of zooming in and watching us. And I'm saying goodbye because actually Plastic Free July is almost coming to an end. Tomorrow is the last day of July already. But that doesn't mean we don't or we can stop or continue doing what we've been doing before. So I kind of hope whoever took the challenge and try to use one item less, that you actually will continue doing so, and maybe even challenge yourself and find other items that you can just quit using. So until then, bye.
Bye. Thank you.